welcome to Answer Me 10, the podcast, with me, Barbara Dickson. Having been interviewed many times over the years, I'm always conscious of the generic nature of interviewing. And in my case, it usually begins with, "So Barbara, tell me, how did it all begin?" This has never exactly excited me, but I've always enjoyed reading those one-page affairs at the back of glossy magazines, which ask the same stereotypical questions to different people every week. Hugely diverse answers appear. So, I thought it would be fun to pose the same 10 questions to some other notable women in the world of music and see what different answers they would give. This is what Answer Me 10 with Barbara Dickson is all about. I hope you enjoy the journey with me. Today's guest is singer and actress TOYAH WILLCOX. A uniquely gifted performer and iconic character, TOYAH has amassed 13 top 40 singles, including I Want to Be Free, Thunder in the Mountains, and It's a Mystery. She's recorded 25 albums, written 2 books, appeared in over 40 stage plays, and acted in over 20 feature films, including the classic Who rock musical Quadrophenia and the Derek Jarman-directed version of Shakespeare's The Tempest. TOYAH continues to make music, tour the world, and create art. Together with her husband, King Crimson guitarist Robert Fripp, they've recently made world headlines with their tongue-in-cheek Sunday lunch videos, which have amassed over 10 million views on YouTube. Question 1. Town or country?
I live in what could be called the country from a Londoner's point of view. I am definitely not a city girl anymore. I have lived in London. I still have a home in London, which I haven't seen for 18 months. But I work in London and I think and I create outside of London. So I would say I am very much country. That said, Barbara, I live on a high street with a bank one side of me, a chemist the other side of me, and I look out on a busy market square and adore the hustle and bustle and the community of where I live. But I think most people would say where I live is actually country.
Did you ever completely live in town? So have you moved to the country, or have you always had that presence in your lovely market town?
I was born in Birmingham, and that felt more like the country than where I live now, because Birmingham is quite large and can be quite sprawling. So I never felt that I was in a city, even when I was in Birmingham. Then I moved to London. I was in London for at least 18 years solidly. And then I had the opportunity, when I got married, to choose where we wanted to live. And we lived in Salisbury. And we were very much in the country, on the outskirts of Salisbury. And without the internet, I found it quite it was hard to find stimulation creatively out there. The internet for me means I can just live anywhere in the world and never feel disconnected and never feel alone. So where I live now, Barbara, is 9 miles out of Worcester City. And I have been coming to this wonderful part of the world since I was 2 years old. And the house that my husband and I bought, my mother brought me to when I was 2. It was a tea room called the Willow Tea Room. And it was very Victorian. And I have always loved this town. I love it with a passion. I have so many ambitions of things I want to do in and with this town. And eventually, at the age of about 50, we moved here. And my husband says it's the home for his life, and I feel the same. We've come home.
Do you have dogs, or do you walk? Do you use the sort of the town country feel of your little market town? Do you walk in the country? Do you use the facilities it provides?
Oh, yes, we're on the high street every day, and people often post on their social media, just seen Toyah, just seen Robert in cost cutters. We're seen. We use the town, we promote the town. Every shop on this high street is a small shop. The town council have worked very hard to keep those large names off this particular high street. So it's not a homogenized high street, and we're all very passionate about that. And the good citizens of this town put the money in to build a theatre and a cinema. You might have even played it, Barbara. I certainly have. It's called Number 8. And we are very, very passionate about the arts in this town. Also, I live on what is one of the longest Georgian high streets in the whole of the world. So we are very protective about the architecture on this high street. And everyone on this high street is a musician.
Wow.
Even the shopkeepers. When you go to Ireland, everyone can play an instrument. Well, everyone on this high street can play an instrument.
Well, that's fantastic, because you have got it's like a happy medium, really. So you've got loads of facilities and community, which you would get from the country, facilities that you would normally get from the town. And you've got the best of both worlds, I would say.
Yes. And you asked, do I walk dogs? I'm highly allergic to dogs. So sadly, no, I can't even let a dog touch my hand. So, but I do walk a lot. We have wonderful woodland around here, Tisley Wood, which we're fighting to protect at the moment because a lot of development is encroaching on the area.
Yes, of course.
Tisley Wood is one of the oldest untouched woods in the UK. So we're very protective of the land around here. We have wonderful farmers around here who produce very beautiful produce, seasonal produce. I walk a lot. Like you, I'm gigging a lot when I can, and I'm also making movies all the time. So I travel a lot. Even in lockdown, I had to build a film studio in the house to continue the work I was producing.
Right.
So, my leisure time is very, very limited, but I can be very creative here.
Question 2, meat or veg?
Vegetarian. I was vegetarian from the age of about 19 right through till I was about 54. I'm about to turn 63 now. And then suddenly I started eating meat again. And then 18 months ago, I decided if I cannot kill an animal myself, and that doesn't mean I desire to, I just physically cannot kill anything. It's totally against my nature. Then I do not want an industry doing that on my behalf. So 18 months ago, I became vegetarian, and I'm now tipping my toes into the pool of veganism, which is I find a little harder within the industry I'm in, because it means you go days without eating. But I'm definitely a devout vegetarian now.
Tell me about cooking. Do you cook? Are you interested in food?
I cook. I'm not interested in cooking. I cook out of necessity. I want my husband, who is about to turn 75, to eat the best food on the planet. I want him to be healthy and to keep the midriff off. So I cook once a day, and I refuse to cook any more than that. If you are a food preparer yourself, Barbara, you will know that it takes hours preparing fresh veg. But I make beautiful soups. We have wonderful roast vegetables. We have unleavened bread. We don't eat yeast. And we have a very good diet. We're never hungry. And what fascinates our friends is that the only meal of the day, the big meal of the day we have, is at lunchtime. I don't eat after 6 in the evening. And I find that my body thanks me for that. I still can get into my school uniform from 55 years ago.
Good for you.
I just refuse for anyone to eat a meal after 6 p.m. because I hate the feeling and the experience of it. But my lunch is a banquet. My lunch is a 3-course lunch. It's huge. And then I know that I will burn that off for the rest of the day. And certainly if I have a concert that night.
It's very interesting. So you, for example, wouldn't eat before, or say within a couple of hours of doing a concert, you have enough energy from your lunch to get you through the evening?
I would make my lunch a little later, about 4 p.m.
Good.
And then I wouldn't eat really again until breakfast the next day.
That's interesting, yeah.
Breakfast means breaking a 12-hour fast, and the body really does appreciate that. But what I do before going on stage is I'll have a whopping great glass of fresh orange juice, freshly squeezed orange juice. So that, to some dietitians, most dietitians in the world, that is all sugar, but that will get me through the show.
Question 3, TV, film or books?
I'm obviously madly in love with film. I love being in movies. I get to make 3 or 4 a year, and the process never lets me down. I am madly in love with the whole process of video making, music videos, and movie making. So I would be so dishonest to myself if I said no to TV and film. Film is a big yes, but I cannot live without books. In our homes, we have 2 houses. We've got one that is our offices and one that's our home, and they're both together. We've got about 16 libraries, and I cannot live without books.
Do you read for pleasure? I mean, what sort of reading do you do?
Well, research is incredibly important to everything I do as an actress. Okay, we can use the internet now, and the internet is so brilliantly kept up to date, but there's some things you find in books that authors went to extreme lengths to find. So I have a whole library of art books because I love to paint, and in not too distant future, I'm going to retire, and I've built an art studio where you're going to find me 24 hours a day. I want to be painting, sculpting, and designing. So I have a whole room of art books, but reading science fiction, reading horror, reading fantasy novels for me is my escapism. So I could never not read.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you like fantasy and science fiction, and that sort of escapism you get through your imagination in books.
Yes, definitely. And I love fabulous prose writers. Occasionally you'll get a book that you think by the cover is a very ordinary story, but the prose writer takes it into so many dimensions. It expands your experience of your own life. So I adore writers.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's only when you read something that is very beautifully written, you realize what the difference is.
Yes.
Because most things are not, in fact, the writing isn't that good. The story can be good, but it's not particularly well written. But I don't know about you, but if I read something that isn't well written, is palpably badly written, I will just shut the book.
Sometimes you get a book that's so badly written you can't put it down, and a book can go culturally and historically so out of favor, and it's quite fascinating to dip your toe back into that culture. I'm passionately in love with the creativity of Stephen King, because somewhere along the line of his career he discovered deep spiritual inner meaning, and it came into his writing. And the last 2 books he's written are so spiritually deep. I just thank him for writing them. They're incredible.
Question 4, night owl or early riser?
Well, I'm both. I'm a chronic insomniac. I've had chronic insomnia since I was 14. So I never know when I'm going to fall asleep. There is no pattern in my sleeping life at all. So sometimes when my husband's getting up at 7 in the morning, I'm only just putting my head down. Other times, if I'm lucky, I might fall asleep at 11 p.m. and be up by 4 to see the sunrise.
So do you go to bed, but you can't sleep, and therefore do you get up and do something, or do you just wait until you're tired in that case?
It's a very good question, Barbara, because if you don't allow the body to rest, your body will wear out. So my doctor said to me, could I just lie down for 4 hours? If you don't fall asleep, don't worry about it, but your body has to have rest. So the way I describe it to people is I don't remain super alert through the dark hours. My brain goes into that needing to rest logarithm, and it's hopeless. It's absolutely hopeless, but I don't fall asleep. So it's not a nice experience. And I explain to people I work with that I do anything to get home other than stay in a hotel, because to be in a hotel and not sleep is not good for your mental health. So I always try and get home, even if it means a 4-hour drive.
How interesting. I used to do that when my children were very small. I used to try and get home, but it was not always possible. But it's interesting because, as you say, to be awake in the middle of the night is a lonely time, isn't it? And also you can think, even the most positively thinking person can be beset with all sorts of strange things at 3 a.m.
For me, to be in a hotel at night not sleeping is the ultimate description of boredom, because there's just absolutely nothing you can do. At least if I'm at home, I've got familiar surroundings and I can plan for the next day. But it turns into a prison at that point. Your hotel room turns into a prison. So I avoid them.
Question 5, faith or fatalism?
Both are the same for me. We can go on our journeys. We can create our journeys through life. We can create good things, and many times we learn the lessons by creating something negative, and we learn that lesson. So for me, life is a journey that never ends. From the day we're born till the day we leave this planet, we are on a journey that is never supposed to end. And within our Western culture, we compartmentalize parts of our lives. And I personally don't think we should, because we work hand in hand with faith and fatalism. And I always believe that faith and fatalism brings us back to where we should be. So it's like pushing against a vast rubber band. We can reach out, we can touch different oceans, we can touch different lives, we can touch different experiences, but we will always be brought back to where we should be at this point in life for the value of this life. And I'm going to explain that as simply as I can. I believe that everything living on this particular planet resonates. We give off energy, we give off positivity, we can give off negativity, we can give off hope, we can give off joy, we can give off anger. We resonate with everything around us, and we broadcast. So because of that, I cannot say I am faith or fatalism. I am both.
Do you believe in a higher power then within that?
That's a fabulous question. Let me get my head around that question. I believe in the fact that we are all one consciousness. And by that, we are all connected, let's say, by a thread. And the damage we do to each other, we damage everything in the world. So cruelty is the biggest evil in the world for me. Pain, deliberate spite are not good in my life. In fact, if you ever come to my house, you would see that we block it. We block it at every level. We try to live as good, positive, loving, giving human beings. Doesn't mean we achieve it, but that's what we attempt to do.
That's what you're aiming to do.
Yes. So do I believe in a higher intelligence? Yes, but we are part of that.
Yes, well, that's another question, isn't it? Because perhaps in organized religion, or certainly in Christianity, you would say that we are part of that, that the Creator created us to be in his image. So that does tie in with that as well.
Also, I'm very, very passionate about prayer, and some people call it meditation. We are exceptional as creatures on this planet in that we can dream and we can pray. And it breaks my heart when young people aren't taught how to pray, because it's part of their internal development. And I think it's a very valuable part of life.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Question 6, Facebook or the phone?
Neither. Okay, let me address that, because that I just contradicted myself with a negative reply. My phone is off all the time. I cannot bear interruption of my thought processes. So the phone is off. I never answer it. Everyone that knows me knows it will never be off. As soon as I meet someone, I say, don't phone me, just text me. In the last 14, 16 months with lockdown, I've built up a phenomenal Facebook community. And I am so grateful for that. And I'm grateful for what I've done on TOYAH YouTube, which is a worldwide hit. Super grateful. So I create content for both my Facebook and TOYAH YouTube for that particular community. What I cannot do, because I am creating 10 hours a day, sometimes 14 hours a day. Yesterday, I was building a green screen studio to shoot 4 rock videos today. So I can't look at all this all the time. So I have gatekeepers who feed everything back to me, knowing how I can give back to my community. So when I say never to both of them, I cannot be the creative human being I am if I am looking at a phone all day. I just can't do it.
However, if you wanted to talk to friends, would you pick up a phone to have a conversation when you choose with somebody that you really like, that you haven't seen for a while?
This is going to sound very strange, Barbara. I never, ever put anything to my ears. And I think what this is about, and I don't know if you've experienced this with other musicians, is I don't even wear headphones when I sing. So my ears are so sensitive. When I'm on stage, I'm wearing earplugs because noise can physically make me very distressed, and sometimes can make me want to be physically sick. And it's a condition that happens with musicians who are exposed to noise a lot. I never pick the phone up. I never put a phone to my ear. I refuse to. So when I kind of, over the last year, Zoom has been an absolute blessing because I can step away from the sound. My hearing is so sensitive that even on a Zoom call, I'm at least 6 feet away from the computer.
Interesting.
Have you not come across that?
No, I haven't. So your communication with your very close personal friends of long standing, the people that you value in your life other than your husband, how do you communicate with them? Do you make an effort to go and see them then?
Yeah, I'd see them. I'd rather see them. I don't think I've had a long telephone conversation for about 30 odd years.
Right.
My husband and I love taking people out for lunch, and we say to all our friends, tell us when you're available and we'll take you out for lunch. And we take them to really lovely restaurants and catch up. I'd much rather do that. That whole communion of eating food and catching up is really lovely. But I've never, ever done the long telephone conversation thing.
Question 7, shower or bath?
Bath. The reason my reaction is a little extreme is I have homes all over the world because I've always invested in property, and I work all over the world, and I've spent a lot of money on these homes, and I've worked hard for that money, and none of them have baths. And I can't be bothered to deal with the workmen to put baths in. It's one of the big contradictory things about being me, is that I very rarely have in my surroundings what I actually want, because I can't stand the mess and the questions. And so I live quite an isolated life, and I have this most beautiful home in London, and it's got a shower, and I detest it.
So you have a nice bath at home?
Got about 5 here. Yeah.
Yes. And do you go to the bath and think and have a, do you use it as therapy, as a ritual?
It's the only time I get to read a newspaper. Absolutely. Put some Epsom salts in the bath, soak for a good hour, 2 if you can get it, and just read. I absolutely adore it. I hate showers.
But most days, would you just jump in the shower, hose yourself down and go? No?
The only time you ever got me in a shower, I had hip replacement when I was 51, and I wasn't allowed to have a bath for 2 months. And I had to put a dustbin liner around my waist, take it up and get in the shower. And my husband held me in the shower because I hate this shower. I hate it so much. Bath at the end of the day is a fantastic way of winding down. It's fabulous.
Question 8. Spring or autumn?
Spring, definitely spring. I look out, we have a most beautiful garden, and I look out and see all this life, and the birds sometimes get so excited they sound as though they're shouting at each other, and you can see the sap rise in the shrubbery and in the trees. You can just see colour coming into the world via nature, and it's gorgeous.
Do you feel sad in the autumn in some way?
I used to feel sad in the autumn. I don't anymore. It's only in recent years, in the past 8 years, I've started to appreciate autumn. And I think part of it is Christmas was always one of my busiest times of year. I used to do pantomime, and I haven't done it since 2012. And I got my Christmases back. And the reason I stopped was I wanted to experience Christmases with my husband. And I didn't want to get to the end of our lives and I'd not had that time with him. And I now adore autumn because it now represents coming home and slowing down.
And do you don't feel the sort of the marking of the year with autumn? I was just thinking there could be if I say a sadness, I'm not trying to make you say that you feel sad. It's not what I'm doing at all. But there's this thing about the passage of time. When you get to the autumn, you go, lots of people say, don't they? Oh, my goodness, another year has just whizzed by.
No, I never feel that. I agree, time goes quickly, but autumn doesn't do that to me. Autumn is just another form of beauty, but you know it's going to come back. And that for me is quite miraculous. You know, at our age, we live with a lot of people who get ill, and they're always told in their therapy that look at nature. Nature brings everything back into the world. So when I see autumn, I just see the world taking a rest. I see the garden outside taking a very much needed rest, and it will be back in the spring. And that's how I view life. It's all cycles.
Question 9, dine out or take out?
We very rarely get takeout, but because of being vegetarian, if we've got friends coming over after 6 p.m, which happens, if we're out of lockdown, can happen 3 times a week, we get them a takeout and I pretend to eat. I think I must irritate my friends so much because I will put a spoonful of food on my plate and push it around. I so hate eating in the evening. And my husband will have a salad, but we'll give our friends a takeout feast. And then we'll play some very weird kind of get card game or something and watch a film, which we love doing. We really love doing that. But dining out for us, where some people go skiing, some people will go to Spain for the summer, some people go to Barbados at Christmas. Dining out for us is our gift to ourselves, our holiday to ourselves. So we dine out at least twice a week.
Do you have somewhere that you like to go, or do you experiment with places? Do you want to have a go at doing eating something different in a different location? Would you dress up to go out to lunch, say?
We keep an eye on reviews. If there's a new restaurant opening in the area, we will go and support it. The thing about living in a kind of area where I do, the community do need to support the businesses. So we make a point of using new startup restaurants. And, you know, the fact that you got TOYAH WILLCOX and Robert Fripp in your local restaurant brings other people in. And I'm not being smug about that, but we're fully aware that if both I and Robert use the high street, it's going to bring footfall to the high street. And we love our high street. So we're the same about dining out. We do have places we love. There's Butler Manor just outside of Broadway in the Cotswolds, which is our treat place. You kind of do need to... The food isn't huge, and it's kind of nouveau cuisine, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And we do usually go and have a tea afterwards because we're still hungry. But we love it, we love it, we love it. And we always dress up. We always overdress. Sometimes I say to my husband, we shouldn't overdress if we're going there. We should. You know, people wonder where we've been. I mean, we've sometimes been asked if we've been to funerals. We're so overdressed. So we're not good at down dressing.
Question 10. High heels or trainers?
Both. Now, I mentioned that when I was 51, I had major hip replacement. I had a prosthetic put into my right side because I was born without development in that side of the hip. And I couldn't wear heels until 2 years ago. And I'm now back in heels. I can do it. And I'm loving it because I'm very short, and heels make a huge difference to how people perceive you and treat you. So I'm back in heels. And
are they thin heels or thick heels? This is from talking to other people now.
I would say they're sensible. When I'm on stage doing my show, they are ankle boots with thick heels, because, as you know, if a heel breaks during a show, you're never going to get the show back on track. So that's thick ankle boot type heels. But when I'm doing TV now, I'm back in 3.5-inch heels, which are slimmer heels. They're proper shoes. And that for me is such a reward after going so long in being in flat shoes.
And would you wear trainers?
I do wear trainers an awful lot. Sometimes I wear trainers to calm down muscle pain, because anyone who's had any form of joint replacement knows that we have to stretch, we have to keep an eye on the tendons around the area, and trainers sometimes just take the inflammation down. So yes, I do wear trainers.
And you don't run, you use trainers. You do run.
I started running a year ago, and that's the first time in my life I started running, but I don't run on asphalt or concrete. I run on a proper running machine.
You run on a machine? Because I was interested in the trainers for running, for the intention that they provide. That's interesting. So you run on a running machine. You don't run outside. You wouldn't run through the country.
I would not run on a hard surface. The scientific proof is that does wear down cartilage. So, and I want to be able to keep my artificial joints for the whole of my life. I don't want to have any revision surgery. I never want to go back there again, Barbara. It was the worst pain I've ever experienced. So every bit of exercise I do is about tightening up the muscles around the joints so the joints are supported. So everything I do is mainly in a gym. I would not run on hard surfaces outside.
And of course, you've got the wonderful cardiovascular workout from the running on the machine. Your heart and lungs are helped by
And
that.
singing.
Yes,
the best.
It's marvelous for just general energy. And I've started to run last year, and the thing about clearing your head is absolutely fundamental. That I noticed that immediately. It just sort of clears your mind of extraneous rubbish that you could do with sort of putting in a bin liner and dropping over the edge of a cliff.
It puts things in perspective, and perspective is always very, very valuable. I think people can deal with problems and things that are weighing on them if their perspective is refreshed. So I agree. I think it helps a lot.
That is marvelous. TOYAH, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you and to get your take on these stereotypical questions. It's fascinating me how people say really different things within the same categories. And your life is fascinating and different and interesting and vibrant. And I wish you the best of luck with all these projects you're involved in. And I just hope it won't be too long until I bump into you again.
I know.
Somewhere.
It's joyous, isn't it? The thought that we might be walking on a stage soon. Wow.
Well, I do hope so. And I wish the same for you. And you doing lots of creative things besides, which is very clever and sensible of you. So I wish you the best of luck, my dear.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for talking to me in this podcast.
Well, it's great to talk to you, and I can't wait to see you in the outside world.
Yes, indeed. Let's do it. Thanks for listening to Answer Me 10 with me, Barbara Dickson. This podcast was recorded in Edinburgh in 2021 and produced and edited by Lee Noble and John Eden.